So good morning, everyone, and I have a great pleasure to welcome you to the first public pilot demo of our lean agile way of working. And just to tell you 2 or 3 things before we really start that broadcast. So this session is being live streamed now, and is being recorded, so it will be made available through our corporate website in the coming weeks. So for people, if you can socialize, you can tell them they can come there and watch it. At certain point during this presentation, we will use Slido to ask you if you have questions for the panelists, and you will have to consent to the processing of your personal data. So that's all for me, and I give the floor to Fergus Sweeney, the chair of the portfolio board of the EMA.
So good morning, everyone, and it's a real pleasure to welcome you here to this public online demo. I believe we've in excess of 700 people have registered, so it's really wonderful to see your enthusiasm, and you certainly have a very good team here who will carry out the demo. This is part of our agile governance process, as Jean-Michel has referred to. There will be these demos on a quarterly basis. This time it's relatively compact because as we increase the scope of projects and developments which come under this agile governance, we will broaden this demo. I really hope it's useful for you, gives you a very good insight into the functionalities being developed, and I really encourage you to use the Slido. I think the system works in the way that if somebody's already asked the question you're interested in, you can vote for it, so those come up to the higher part. But really to emphasize that these demos are part of a transparency goal. Part of the purpose of the agile way of development and governance is that we regularly develop small increments into production so people see developing tools and are able to use them as they're released into production, instead of the big waterfall processes where very few people see anything for months or years on end, and then all of a sudden there's a big system. So it's really important that we engage with this process, and as I say, I'm delighted to see the high numbers of people who have registered for this, and we certainly look for much wider numbers. I mean, we're far from the technical limits of these webinars, so certainly if you find this one useful, come back to the next one and encourage others who would be interested, particularly by the scope of the applications. The demo shows an integrated view of what has been built in the last 3 months. So as I said, they're quarterly. It's a program increment in the particular area of development. It is recorded and published on the corporate website, as Jean-Michel says. So if you have colleagues who are interested in this technical area, it's something you can refer them to. It is presented at what we call a value stream level and is called a ceremony. The agile process and governance uses the term ceremony to describe events such as a demo or a meeting or a discussion to plan the next increment of work, so the next quarter. This is one of those ceremonies. It's done at value stream level. We have a number of value streams at the agency. This belongs in the regulatory lifecycle management, and the system demo today is a pilot. So it's one of the first. We have done one previously, and with the colleagues who are going to present to you, but this is the first public one. We had a big public one for the CTIS system, but it was slightly different. But nonetheless, it's an important tool. So today's demo will show the variation form for human medicines DADI and PMS supporting the form, the product management system, but colleagues will explain the details of those. As I've said, its scope is smaller than future system demos as we bring more things into these value streams and into the agile governance. But I think this will give you a taste of something to come, and I think one which will enable users across the network and across the pharmaceutical industry to understand and be well informed of what's happening and what's coming in the future into production. So with that, have a really good morning. Do ask questions or vote for the question that you find most similar to yours, and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Okay, so Slide has already been mentioned a few times. I think a lot of you will know the drill. You can either scan the QR code on your phone, and it takes you straight to the Slido. You will not actually need that passcode that it says there. You can go to also go to slido.com and put in that number behind the hash key. You are welcome to send your questions throughout the entire demo. The product owners, Noel, Christina, Marcos, and Veronica, will do their best to answer the questions as they come in. However, indeed, with potentially over 700 people, they will probably not be able to answer all the questions, and not all the questions are necessarily going to be on topic. So everything, all the questions that come in, we'll take into account. We'll find ways, indeed, of addressing them. That may not be in this session. It may be in future communications or in training material. And but indeed, what we will do is we'll ask you to ask those questions, to vote if you're to vote for another question if that question's already if your question's already been asked, because that'll also help us to triage. We'll understand which are the most important questions and the questions that you most want to get answered. The questions that are both on topic, so really indeed addressing DADI content or PMS content, are the ones that we'll highlight, and those are the ones that we'll answer during the Q&A at the end. Maybe slightly counterintuitively, just to avoid voting and lots more questions coming in at the end, we will actually close the Q&A just before the Q&A, and the Q&A will really be about answering the questions that have already come in. So make sure that you get your questions in before the end of the demo.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Veronica Lipucci Di Paola, and I am here as a PMS co-product owner to present to you today in conjunction with my colleagues Christina Puzzari, Marcos Fernandez Gomez, and Noel Diamond, how the EMA is moving towards the implementation of the target operating model through a combination of different projects and epics in a safe mode, where PMS and DADI projects are the first one to be in the light spot. If I can have the next slide, please. I will go through this diagram to explain to you all how the TOM represents how the product data is managed and can be reused in the regulatory processes, but also application wherever this is needed. So as shown in this slide, the main components of the TOM, the target operating model, consist in some steps. So first of all, there is the need of to capturing data for regulatory processes. This is facilitated by the use of the electronic application form, as you know, the EAF, that has to be indeed included in the dossier. In this regard, the technology has been updated to facilitate the product data entry into the electronic application form in a more standardized and structured way in order to retrieve the product data directly from PMS database. Once the product data have been retrieved, the data in the application form will be then assessed and managed by the relevant competent authority. And the availability of structured data in the electronic application form will be then facilitates the process of accessing and handling the product data during the regulatory procedure. At the end of the procedure, authorized product data and relevant documentation will be then stored and made available in the PMS database. And once this part of the project is fully implemented, PMS will act as the main repository of centrally and non-centrally authorized medicinal products to be then reused, as I said, in the next regulatory activity. So with the target operating model, we aim to have one common messaging standard, which is based on the FHIR HL7 standards, and we also aim to implement a single set of common medicinal product data elements across different messages. This message, it needs to be ISO DMP compatible. So that's the goal of the target operating model and the reason why we have PMS and DADI project joined together. If I can have the next slide, I would explain what is the PMS project about and what do we aim to achieve with this project. So the PMS project is the product management service. As I said, is a project that is part of the SPORT program, a bigger program containing also RMS, OMS, and SMS, dealing with substance, referentials, and organizations. And SPORT is a network project which is led by the EMA in strict cooperation with the European Medicines Regulatory Network and CAs and industry. It is important to state that PMS project aims at enabling the implementation of the ISO DMP in order to identify and properly describe in a more standardized way medicinal products. The scope of the implementation is to allow everybody across the network to be aligned in one standard of set of rules and in essence to all of us speak the same language. The implementation will apply for both centrally and non-centrally authorized medicinal products for human use, of course, and a comprehensive and consolidated product data set will constitute the basis to be reused by the DADI, so via the electronic application form, and throughout the regulatory process, as well as the entire product life cycle. With implementation of the previously described target operating model, PMS aims to deliver structured product data to be hence, as I said, reused within the regulatory procedure, but also to have a better and good quality and so trusted data. So additionally, PMS will be the successor, as I said, of the current XVMPD database by aiming to replacing in the database submission process the data format and the data content due to a more extended set of data elements that we have in PMS data model. So in essence, what will PMS change? So PMS will enable the implementation of the ISO/DMP standards, will change the content and format of the authorized medicinal product data, which are used in a system requiring indeed product data, such as the DADI web form and the Article 57 submission, but will also change the process for submitting product data to XVMPD database. However, just bear in mind that the timelines and the process is still to be determined, and this will not occur this year in 2022. What instead PMS will not change is also important to state that the process to apply for and submit or approve marketing authorization application will not change. And with that will not also change the legal requirement for submitting authorized product data. In the next slide, I will leave the floor to my colleague Christina Puzzari, who will give you more information about the DADI project.
Thank you, Veronica, and good morning, everyone. So I'm Christina Puzzari. I'm the DADI co-product owner for this project. So I'll just give you a similar background to our project. So basically, the main aim is to replace the current PDF-based electronic application forms with new web forms. So we are replacing the today's PDF. So there's variations for human medicinal products, which is the very first form to be replaced this year. And then we will follow with the other forms, for example, the ones for the initial marketing authorizations for human and veterinary and the renewal form. And this will happen throughout this year and next year. And of course, these forms cater for both centralized and nationally authorized products. So we're introducing this new technology for the forms to optimize the submissions handling process and enabling the full use of the PMS master data. So if we look at what will change, it's these PDF format application forms. Um, Other forms for other types of procedures will also be under consideration, but that's all something to be discussed and decided in future. So we will cater for both human and veterinary forms, and as mentioned earlier, both centrally authorized products and nationally authorized products are in the scope. And then if we look at what that it will not change, so there will still be a familiar human readable PDF output. So the applicants will use a web user interface to fill in the data, but at the end of the process, you will generate a PDF rendition. The process how to apply or submit variations or marketing authorization applications will not change. So you will still include that PDF form inside your ECTD or VNIS package. And of course, mainly the content of the application form in the submission package does not change. So for human variations, for example, the form is governed by the NTA. If we move to the next slide, please. So here, just a quick overview. How does PMS data link into the EAF form? So the variation form uses data from PMS by using the product selection feature from PMS. And additionally, what is something completely new, for the very first time, we will be displaying structured data elements um, in the form for those products that you have selected, and you are changing in the scope of that specific variation. So, of course, as mentioned by Veronica earlier, the PMS and EAF data structures adhere to the ISO IDMP format, and this is relevant for human centralized and non-centralized products. For veterinary products, they will follow a very similar fashion, but using the UPD format. Of course, we need to bear in mind that not all PMS data elements are in the scope of the marketing authorization applications, the variations, or renewal forms. So there are data and processes that are still outside of the scope of the application forms. So, for example, marketing authorization transfer, update of the QPPV, and so forth. Not everything is governed by the form. So we're still looking at which way to use to update this data. There will be a user interface, and of course, there will be an API to PMS system. So what is important to remember, the DADI project does not define the new business processes, but it focuses on providing the basis for the data to be exchanged. So this is the common file message format for medicinal products. And of course, then to look at examples of the processes, what can be built based on that same file message is feeding that approved data back to PMS. So when you use the data in the variation form, of course, the aim is to push that data back from the form after the variation is authorized back to the system to be reused again. The same data is used for submission of Article 57 data elements, and of course, we can use it for the data cleansing and enrichment during the initial phases. We can move to the next slide, please. And the next. Here, so if we quickly look at the overview, what has happened so far? So with the DADI project, so far we have concentrated and focused on delivering the form for the variations for human medicinal products. So we've been setting up the infrastructure, we've been developing the form, and we've been developing the PDF output. This year, the focus will be replacing the variations form for humans. And of course, this form covers both CAPS and NAPS. So what we need to do now is continue on development, which means finalizing the form. Then we will need to perform a very thorough testing of the form, put into place maintenance and support for the form. And of course, we are all the time very closely collaborating with our PMS colleagues and with the other SPOR colleagues, because of course, the forms don't only use PMS, we're also, of course, using RMS, OMS, and SMS. And of course, we will then need to support the transition of those forms into production. And for future, beyond next year, we will then start replacing the application forms for initial marketing authorizations and for renewals and the variations for veterinary medicinal products. And of course, we will need to then support the new versions of the forms that have already been published. So initially the variations human form, and then we will also explore further machine-to-machine solutions. And there I will hand back to my colleague Veronica to continue on PMS.
Well, actually, I think I will take the
Oh,
word.
sorry, I think
No
it's
problem.
Marcus. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Christina. So yeah, for PMS, what we've done so far, and this is something that you might already know, um, we have already provided version 2.0 and 2.1 of the EUIG. We have also started with the data migration from the different sources. So you know that we are migrating the data from Article 57 and from SciAmed into PMS. And from the other projects of SPOR, so the substances, organizations, and referentials, we are getting ready to support PMS. We are creating all the lists and all the control vocabularies that we need. We are improving the organizations and also working on the substances. For PMS, the focus this year will be to implement IDMP and also this two-way data integration. So we will have the data coming from different sources, so from SciAmed, XCVMPD, from PMS. So what we are trying to do is to support the end-to-end regulatory process, to support the DADI variations form, and also other projects internally at TMA like RBOP and the IRIS variations. For the future, what we want to do in PMS is to support not only the variation forms, but also the rest of the variations that will be released by DADI, so the marketing authorization application, for example, or the renewals. And at some point in time, the aim of PMS is also to replace Article 57 submissions. For the moment, we are not replacing it. It will not happen in 2022, but the aim is at some point to be able to replace Article 57. If I can have the next slide, please. As you all know, EMA is now implementing the safe agile way of working. So PMS and DADI have defined several epics and features so we can deliver PMS and DADI in a safe agile way. In this slide here, you can see the different epics. The blue boxes correspond to PMS epics and features. The green one correspond to the DADI one. So as you can see here for PMS, we have 4 different epics that we have identified. And inside those epics, we have the different features that we are working on. We have an epic, which is the SciAmed integration. So what we are doing is we are taking the CAP data, so the centrally authorized product data, we are migrating it to PMS, and we are keeping this continuously updated. For Article 57, what we are doing is we are taking the data that we have in XCVMPD, so we have CAP and non-CAP data, and we are also migrating this data into PMS. As you know, for CAPs, we have 2 sources, so what we are also doing is this merge and mapping. So we are merging the CAP data that we have in both systems, in SciAmed and in Article 57. As part of the IDMP implementation, what we are doing is we are working on exposing and reading the PMS data through the API. Andre will show you later how the API looks like. And also the other epic that we have is to support the end-to-end regulatory process. We will be working on this in the following months. So we will start working on the user interface to correct and complete the product data, what we call enrichments and corrections. And we will also work on a feature, so we will be able to import the data from the DADI message into PMS. I think, Noel, you will cover, or Christina, the DADI part here.
Christina, please go ahead.
Thank you. So with the DADI forms, we currently only have one epic, which is the DADI variation form. And as I mentioned earlier, so this is really the replacement of the EAF PDF form. So there we have one of the most important deliverables. There is the data connection to PMS and developing the user interface for the applicants to fill in the form. So the form filling will not, in essence, be much different from the PDF, apart from that it's a completely different user interface, and you will have a lot less typing to do because you will be selecting the product from PMS. Of course, the scopes will come from RMS as they have come before. We have a lot of business rules, validation rules guiding you to fill in the forms correctly. And then when you get to the present and proposed part of the form, as I mentioned earlier, the structured data changes, the information will come directly from PMS. So instead of for you to type in the details, you will see the data from PMS where available, and then you will fill in the data for the present changes in the form in the present field. So I think that's it for the DADI in a very short summary, but Noel will go through the features in more detail in his presentation.
Thank you, Christina. So can I have the next slide? In this slide, well, we are starting now with the system demo. If I can have the next slide, please. The PMS team will show you in this demo how we have migrated the data from Article 57 and SIAMED into PMS. To do so, we have chosen two different products. One is a non-cap, an MRP, this is Trinomia. And we have also selected a centrally authorized product, which is Filgastrim Exal. First of all, Andre will show you how the data looks like in the API. For these people that is not really technical, it might look a bit difficult to read this data in the API. So what I will do after Andre's presentation is to show you how the data looks like in XCVMPD or in SIAMED. So for the cap, I will show you EV and SIAMED. For the non-cap, I will only show you EV because we don't have any other data. And then I will show you with a viewer how this data looks like in PMS. So Andre, if you want to share your part, how the API looks like and how the data looks there after the migration, all yours.
Yes, thank you, Marcos. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andre Idu. I am a platform architect for the Spore platform, and I will share my screen briefly. I hope it is visible.
Yes.
Thank you. So today I will show you the two main endpoints on the PMS API that we will use for reading data. And the first one that I want to show is the search endpoint that we have. So as you might all be aware, the PMS API implements the HL-FHIR standard. This already defines search functionality, and for the resources that are in scope of PMS, mainly the medicinal product definition resource of FHIR, we will support all the search functionality as defined by the FHIR standard. And what I want to show here is that this actually helps us find product data based on the XCVMPD product codes. So here I've searched for a specific EV code of a product, and I'm able to see the information of the medicinal product definition resource returned. So that should be just one resource. This is an XML representation of the medicinal product definition. The PMS FHIR API will also support JSON, and this product is related to multiple EV codes. This is part of what we've been working on, a difference in granularity between XCVMPD and PMS. So what you can expect is that what are considered multiple products in XCVMPD are grouped together in one PMS product due to the rules that define an ISO IDMP product as per our implementation guide for PMS. What I also want to share is that this medicinal product definition resource is mainly related to the section 1 of the ISO IDMP chapter 2, which defines the data elements in scope for PMS. And in order to get all the information that is in scope for this product, we have another endpoint where we can use the PMS ID of this product, which would be the medicinal product definition ID. If we use this to retrieve information, we would then get a bundle of resources related to the product that would then be the entire data that we have on it. So we have the medicinal product definition resource again here, which is our root resource, and then other resources that are related to it. For instance, the package product definition resources, which define the packages and their so the physical representation of the product. Each package can be expected to be related to one specific EV code. That is the level of granularity that we have in the data load. And furthermore, we have other resources such as authorization information. One resource will be related to the section 2 in chapter 2. That is the product level authorization information, where the common information resides. And then if products are authorized per with authorization numbers per package, we have other authorization information on package level. And apart from authorization data, we have other information that might be in scope. So here we have the administrable product definition. That is the equivalent of the pharmaceutical product. And then furthermore, ingredient data and other resources. And with that, I think I will stop my share.
Okay, thank you very much, Andre. So let me share now my screen. Hope you can see it now. So what I will present here in my part of the demo is how the data looks like in EV. So on the left hand side of your screen, you can see EV. This is our test environment. And on the right side, what you can see is what I told you is the viewer of the data that Andre has already shown. So this way we can see the data a bit clearer. It's easy for us to check that the data migration has been done correctly. It's easier to read. So this is what we are using internally, thanks to Andre, to check the data migration and to be able to see the data from PMS. So as I said, I will start with an MRP product. We have chosen a product that has been approved in Italy. So as you already know, in Italy, the authorization number is assigned at the package level. In this case, we have selected Trinomia 100 milligrams, 40 milligrams, 10 milligrams capsule rigid, which has been approved in Italy for 6 presentations that you can see here. But as you might see in the viewer from PMS, we only have 5 EV codes from EV. So we have only taken 5 EV codes and we have migrated those. The reason why is because, as you can see here in EV, there is one product, one record that has not been validated. That means that if the product is not validated, so if we go to the product validity is not assessed, this product is not going to be migrated into PMS. The rest of the products where I have the product validity as valid, those has been migrated into PMS. So as I said, these are the EV codes that I will be taking. Take into account that we should have 6, but we only have 5 because of the reason that I have already spoken. So which is the data that we have in EV? We have plenty of data. We have everything about the authorization country. We have the procedure. We have the authorization number, MRP, DCP number. And this is the data that we have in PMS. At the level of the medicinal product, and this structure has been following the chapter 2 of the EUIG, we have several information. So for example, we have this domain, which is human use. We are only migrating human data, so this is a field that we are populating by default. We also have the authorized pharmaceutical form. In this case, is capsule hard. You can see here the transcription of the name, but we are actually taking this information from RMS. We have done the mappings. So we can take this data from the authorized pharmaceutical form, which is capsule hard, the same as the one that has been migrated into PMS. In this case, the combined pharmaceutical dose form is empty because we don't have a combined pharmaceutical dose form. The legal status of supply, for example, is also empty because this information is not in EV, so we don't have any source where we can take this data. We don't have, or the additional monitoring indicator is false because here at the level of the authorized medicinal product, the additional monitoring that you can see here, we don't have the information, so it's false. And we also have the pediatric indicator. As you know, in EV, this information is stored in the comment section. In this case, the comment section is empty, so we assume that there is no, we cannot migrate this data, so it's there is no use for pediatric population, so this information in PMS is false. We don't have either the full indication text. This is a field that we will only have for CAPS because we have this information in SciAmed as well as the URD ID. What we have is the product classification. This is the ATC code. You can see here the transcription or the short name that we have in EV, but we can also have the ATC code as we have in EV. This is just a matter of how are we showing this data in the PMS viewer. We also have the product classification, which is coming from here, the pharmaceutical, the medicinal product type. We have the product classification, and then we can go to the medicinal product name. We have, as you can see, the full name. We have the country language of the name. We have then the different medicinal parts. So we have the pharmaceutical dose form, the invented name, the strength name. This is coming from EV because we have all this information here, the full presentation name, short name, etc. So this is a one-to-one migration into PMS. There might be the need to update this data because, as you know, in PMS, we have more name parts than in EV. But at the moment, as we only have the sources of information, is what we are taking here. We also have the different master files. In this case, is the master file type. If we search for this code into RMS, we will be able to see that this is the pharmacovigilance system master file, which corresponds to this MFL number, which we have here, the MFL. We also have the QPPV identifier, which is the same as this one in EV. Here we have a known error. We have not able to migrate the pharmacovigilance synchron information, so the email, the ROM, the phone, sorry. This is something that we have in EV, as you can see here. So for the next sprint, the next release, we will be able to have this information also in PMS. Something interesting that we have also migrated are the different attachments that we have in EV. Here you can see that we have 3 different attachments. You can see that we have the ATT code from EV. If I go to the product attachment in EV and I select this one, you can see that this one corresponds to this one. And here you can say, okay, why do you have only 3 attachments if we have 6 different EV codes? In this case, it's because the same ATT code is used for different in different products. So for example, here we have the 499, which is this one. But then this one is the 500. But if I go to different record, I will have the same 500, 500. So if I have the same attachment, I am not migrating it all the times. I'm not repeating this migration. So we are only migrating once the attachment. This would be the medicinal product part of the of PMS. If we go to the therapeutic indication, in this case we only have one indication. This is the cardiovascular event prophylaxis. This is the if we check this in RMS, I would have this cardiovascular event prophylaxis. So we have migrated the correct indication. Then, and this is the most interesting part. Here we have one medicinal product, but we have, in this case, 5 different packages medicinal product because we have 5 packages in EV. As you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 package medicinal products. We have linked each package medicinal products to the corresponding EV code. So where are we migrating the information? And we have the package description for each of them. This package description, as you know, is coming from EV. We have this information here, which is the same that we have in PMS. We also have the language depending on the country of authorization. In this case, as we have different packages and following chapter 2, what we have done is migrate the marketing authorization information at the level of the package. So we have the regulatory authorization type. This is a code for marketing authorization. We have the marketing authorization number, which is taken from each of the EV codes. We have this information here. We also have the country of authorization, which is Italy. We have the authorization status, which is valid. And we also have the date of the authorization, in this case is the 6th of July, 2017. We have this information for each and every package. So we have been able to map which are the packages that belong to the same medicinal product and merge them into PMS. If we go now to the pharmaceutical product, in this case, we have the information. Let me collapse those things so it's easier for you to see. We have this information here in EV. In this case, we only have one pharmaceutical product with a lot of ingredients. As you can see, we don't have a pharmaceutical product description because we don't have this information in EV, but we have the administrable dose form. This is coming from Article 57, which is this one, the administrable pharmaceutical dose form. And we have been able to map the different ingredients. So in this case, for this medicinal product, we have 27 different ingredients. We have mapped if this is an excipient or if it's an active ingredient. Here you can see that the strength is masked. We have done that because, I mean, we can see it, but for the purpose of the demo, we have masked this data because for the CAP example that I will show you later, we have the information on the excipient, so this is confidential data and we cannot show it. But for sure, we have been able to migrate the strength and the at the presentation level, so we have this information in PMS as well. If, for example, I look for this EV code in UTCT, I have this substance, ramipril, which is the same as I have here. So, for example, if I look for an excipient, you will be able to see that we have also ipramelose, which is this one. So we have been able to migrate and to map all the different substances, defining if it's an active ingredient or an excipient. What we have also migrated is the route of administration. So in this case, if I look for this term in RMS, this is oral use, which is the same route of administration that I have in EV. So this is all the data that we have. This is all the data that we have for the non-cap. All the data is coming from Article 57 because we don't have any other source of information. And as you can see, and all the migration is correctly, we know that we have some known errors that will be fixed in the next sprint. And again, for this example, I would like to reiterate that In this case, this EV code is not has not been validated by EMA. That's why we have not been able to migrate it to PMS. Now, let me go to the next medicinal product. In this case, I will take a centralized procedure. For the centralized procedure, as you know, we have data coming from SciAmed and data coming from Article 57. I need to. So in this case, we have data coming from Article 57 and data coming from SciAmed. So I will show you how the data looks like in this case in PMS. This is the PMS viewer for this medicinal product, which is filgrastim XAL 48 mega units. As you can see, oh, I don't have now. Well, we have different presentations. Let me show it here. So this is how the data looks like in SciAmed. We have all these different presentations because we have a profile syringe with the needle wart or a profile syringe without the needle wart. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different presentations for the filgrastim XAL 48 mega units. How the data looks like in XBMPD, in this case, we have all the different records have been validated. Therefore, we have been able to migrate this to SciAmed. We have the domain as well. This is the human use. We have the authorized pharmaceutical form, which is the solution for infusion that we have it here. In this case, we have mapped the correct authorized pharmaceutical form for the correct list. In this case, in EV, we have solution for injection infusion in profile syringe. The correct term from the correct list in RMS is this one. So take into account that we have done some transformation of the data. Okay, so this is IDMP compliant. We have the additional monitoring indicator, which is false, as we can see here. And the pediatric use indicator is false, but I know that here we can see that the comment is that the medicinal product is authorized for the treatment in children. This is also a non-error. We are fixing this for the next sprint of the of PMS, the migration. As well as the full indication test, we have this information in EV, as you can see here, the therapeutic indication, we have the full indication text. What we will have is this information migrated from SciAmed into PMS. So for the next release, we will also have this information here. Again, the product classification, which is the ATC code, we have migrated this from Article 57. We have the product classification, which is other, we have it here. And again, we go to the different full names, the full name and the different parts of the name. This is coming from Article 57, all these parts of the names that we can see here that have been split correctly. So we have this information in PMS. For the master file, we have, again, this is the code for the master file location. This is the master file that we have here with the same code. We have the QPPV as well, and the QPP role, which is a term coming from RMS. This is the QPP role that we have indicated. Again, the same error that we have before for the non-cap, the pharmacovigilance secret information, we have not migrated it from XBMPD, but it will be migrated for the go live. We also have the different attachments. In this case, we have all those attachments because in Article 57, each attachment has a different EV code. Here we have the 156. For this one, we have the 158. That's why we have migrated all the different documents into PMS. Something different from a non-cap is that in SciAmed, we have the information about the manufacturers and the manufacturing business operations. As you can see in these screenshots, we have taken screenshots because there is confidential data that we cannot show, and that's why we have those screenshots that I hope you can see well with the mask data. In this case, we have been able to migrate all the different manufacturers' business operations that we have in SciAmed. We have masked the location because this is confidential data, but we have the start date, we have the confidential indicator, and this is confidential, and we also have the operation type. If you allow me to search, for example, for this term in, this is the term for bioequivalence contract research organization. We have 4 different manufacturers with this role. Here I have only taken the screenshot of one of them, but you can see that we have all those 4 manufacturers with this role. As you can see, the start date, in this case, we have 31st of December, 1899. The real date is 1st of January, 1900. This is just the problem of the time zone. We will amend this in the next release. But here you can see that we have all the information of the different manufacturers with the different operation types. This is something that you will have to review at the go live to check if you have all the different manufacturers that you have approved for your medicinal product. At the level of the marketing authorization, here we have the regulatory authorization type. This is marketing authorization, and we have the marketing authorization number. As you can see, for CAPS, we have this information at the medicinal product level. We have taken the root number of this medicinal product. Here we have the EU number, so we have taken only until this 496. Then the presentation number will be assigned at the package level. We also have the authorization country, in this case is the European Union, and we have the date of birth authorization, the international birth date. This information is coming from SciAmed. We have this information here, European birth date, the international birth date. This is something new that we didn't have for the non-CAP product. We also have the marketing authorization holder. In this case is Exal. We have the LOC ID from OMS. And we also have the regulator. In this case is EMA and also the LOC ID. More information that we have the product, the procedure and the identifier. This is coming from EV, the procedure type, the procedure start date and end date, which is coming from SciAmed. All those rules, which information is coming from where, for which type of product, because it's different if I have a cap or a non-cap. This will be released in Chapter 7 of the EUIG when we have all the information will be released, so you can have all this information. If we go to the indication section, in this case, we have 8 different indications for this product. So you can see here that we have 8 different indications. I can look for one of them in RMS. In this case, I have febrile neutropenia, which is this one. Okay, so you can see that the indications have been migrated correctly. Now we go to the packaged medicinal product. In this case, we should have the 6 packaged medicinal product that we have defined before. Sorry, 8. So we have the 8 packaged medicinal product. We have the EV code where we are taking the information. In this case, the package description, if you see here in Article 57, this field is empty. So the rule that we have defined is that if the field in EV is empty, then we take this information from SciAmed. We are concatenating different fields. We are concatenating the packaging field, the pack size, and the content. So this will be the package description that we will assign to this product because the data in Article 57 is missing. We also have the package description language, which is taken depending on the authorization country. And we also have the pack size, which in this case are 10 syringes. Here I have, in a different packaged medicinal product, I have 3 syringes. This information is coming from SciAmed, okay? At the level of the packaged medicinal product, we have the marketing authorization information. Here we have the full MA number with the presentation number that we have assigned here. We have the country of authorization, the authorization status, and the status date. This is coming from EV that you have here. It is the same. At the level of the packaged medicinal product, we also have the package item container. We have the quantity, we have the units of presentation, and also the manufacturer dose form. This is coming. This information is coming from SciAmed, and something interesting here is that for caps, we will have the ingredients for the manufacturer item. This information is coming from SciAmed. So if I show you how the ingredients look like in SciAmed here, you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 ingredients. We have the excipients. We have here the strength, as you can see. This is confidential data. That's why we have masked this information. We have the excipients, and we also have the active ingredients. Again, for the manufacturer item, we will have 6 different ingredients because this is the information that we have in SciAmed. We also have the material, which is the information coming from SciAmed. I'm not going to check each and every package, but you can see that we have all the 8 packages coming from Article 57 with data that is coming also from SciAmed, and I will go directly to the pharmaceutical product. The pharmaceutical product, as you know, is coming from EV. So here in this case, if for this medicinal product, I only have one pharmaceutical product, the administrable dose form is solution for infusion injection is the same that we have here. But in this case, in EV, in EV, I only have 5 ingredients. That's a difference between SciAmed and Article 57. If I check the SMPC, I only have this form excipient plus the active substance. So in SciAmed, we have some information which will be migrated to the manufacturer item. In the pharmaceutical product, the information is coming from Article 57. So there will be a discrepancy, or maybe it's correct. The manufacturer item and the pharmaceutical product might not have the same amount of ingredients. This is something that you need to check when we go live with this data. Again, for the pharmaceutical product, we have the different ingredients. If I look for this code in EUTCT, you will be able to see that this is filgrastim, which is the same as I have here. The strength in this case is masked, but this is public data, so you will have it this way. Here we have all the different ingredients, and in this case, I have 2 different route of administrations authorized here in EV. So I have subcutaneous use and intravenous use. So in the pharmaceutical product, we have migrated these 2 different route of administrations. I hope this is clear. Here you can see how we have migrated the data from Article 57 and SciAmed into PMS. Andre has shown you how this data looks like in the API. And here I have shown you how this data would look like with the PMS viewer, which thanks to Andre, we have a better way and an easy way to check that the data has been migrated correctly and which are the changes that we need to do in the next sprint. So I will stop sharing. I think we need the slides back because Noel has to present something before the demo. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for this very detailed explanation on data migration. As most of you are probably aware now, this presentation is really focusing on what we did in the last 3 months. So this is the style that you will be getting from us every 3 months, detailed information of what exactly we are doing. So we want to give a bit of transparency here. And I'm going to try the same thing for the DADI implementation, so the EFs. As this is one of the first, well, I would say one of the first times we're doing this, because we did do one presentation for DADI in January this year, I don't know if you had the ability to join there, where we presented the status quo, so what happened from May to January. Now, what I will tell you today is what will happen from, well, what we implemented from January to March, which is our last increment, we call it, so our last 3 months, and then a bit of an outlook. In the upcoming week, we will plan our work for the next 3 months, and this is the cycle we are moving forward. If you want more details on what happened from May 21 to January 22, there is a public video available of the webinar that we had in January. So I would welcome you to watch this, where we have about, I think, 40 minutes of explanation of what the project is and demo and showing exactly how what works. Today I have a bit less time, so I will be using about 20 minutes and try to cover 10 minutes of a quick tour of what happened so far and 10 minutes what we implemented this time. In detail, what happened from May to January is that the human variation form, as we know it today, so all the fields that you know from the PDF are covered now and were implemented in a web format. We have done the PMS product selection, so integration with PMS, and the ability to select a product from there. And we have done at least parts of a FHIR message. So we are generating the XML FHIR message, and we are exporting this into a PDF. That PDF looks more or less as the one you know, but it has the new FHIR message attached. We have started doing the IAM integration. This partially was easy because we are using a very closed system, but partially we did realize that there are additional features required. So I would say IAM integration is about halfway done. And we have started at least to test and to see if we can actually do this, being able to edit structured information just around medicinal products. So the main information on the product itself. This was most of the implementation. So some things do happen, did happen in the last 2-3 months. Mainly we have thought about giving authorities access as well. So this covers the national agencies and EMA. They will need to be able to look at the EF as well. As this is now a web form, access is restricted. The second part is the package selection. So as I said before, the PMS product selection happened last year. This year we have done the package selection, which I will demo shortly, plus the link to say which scope is actually changing which package. Now, as we are doing a kind of MVP, so a minimal viable product, we don't want to forget usability entirely. We are aware that this is rolled out to quite a lot of people. So we do want the system to be usable. That's why we are starting with some essential usability improvements. There can always be a lot of work on this, but we are doing the very essential things that have to happen for this to be intuitively understandable. Next, we have implemented now successfully, hopefully, the work sharing and grouping calculation. So it will no longer be necessary to indicate if a variation is a work sharing or a grouping, but the form itself will know. We have implemented for the FHIR export and the changes part. So we are going to continue with the implementation of the FHIR export. This is not something we can do in a month or in 3 months. This is a lot of work. Creating this new FHIR message is creating a new standard of exchange for products. Now for products, we do have the great assistance of our PMS colleagues who manage this part, but we do have to do everything around the product that specifies the procedural information. And this includes changes. So now we have included if there are several products in there and there are changes being done, at the bottom of the message, there will be a list of these changes, which is automatically generated and can be imported in any system reading that XML. So you can quickly see what has exactly changed from the last time I have submitted a product. The last part we did was another update. So this is our 5th update of the PDF export, and we have included the payment details and some procedural information. Next up, so for future developments, and also partially in the next 3 months, but probably even longer than that, we are going to improve on the OMS integration. So we have already integrated OMS, but we want to make it easier to search for them and having it a little bit faster. We have identified some access management requirements that need to be covered. So I'm calling this kind of advanced access management. And this will very likely be covered in the next PI. So sorry, using acronyms here, program increment demo, which is in 3 months, and you are invited, of course, all to take part. I will have some explanations on what kind of roles you will be able to have in order to manage your own access for your company to the new application form. This might be easy if you have 5 people in your company, but if you use consultancies or if you have organizations that are split into several OMS organizations in different countries, this can get a bit complex, and we're trying to accommodate all possible scenarios. After that, we will be improving some other usability issues that we have and giving it a better design to easier navigate. Then we did launch what we call an alpha UT, which are just a few friendly testers. They have identified some key feedback for us that needs to be addressed. And after that, I would say, well, we are where we are today. But if we want to be better than today, we do want to have the structured data as well. And the structured data we only have for Medicinal Product at the moment. What we are missing is devices, organizations, which covers MAH and manufacturers, the composition, which covers the ingredients plus whatever product is on top, so manufactured item or pharmaceutical product. The structured data of packages covers, well, everything around packages. And then it is maybe ambitious, but we do want to have structured data on indication as well. This is not there today, but it would be nice to have something in addition in the web form, because we have it in PMS, although it's not covered, well, entirely necessary by NTA. A lot of people would like to see this. It does make sense. So we'll see if we can add indication there as well. And before live, our goal is to have a UAT with a broader audience. It is currently discussed on where this call of interest will be and how many people can we support in a broad UAT. And then we do want to reserve some space to implement the feedback from there. So this is an overview of everything that we do in the project. And now I want to focus on the middle part here, where I will actually demo exactly what we did. In order to that, I will be sharing my screen and taking over from here. I do hope the resolution is fine for you. I'm working on 150%. My colleagues, if this is not large enough, please give me a quick shout out. I can zoom in one more time. So we did have just a couple of improvements on our general portal. This is the landing page that you can see. We have a very easy to find new application form button, or up here, the new application form. There will be a forum, a link to SPOR, a link to IM to register. if need be. For now, I can just click on New Application Form and I will be launched directly into a new application form, or I can go to my existing application forms and continue drafting the ones I had before. Just to reiterate, if you want to see more details on this, please watch the demo from January. For now, I will be creating, as I have another 20 minutes, I will be creating a new one. I don't have to use a prepared one. I will be just creating a variation form for human and using one of my test organizations, which has some test products. Unfortunately, we don't have the full PMS integration right now. This is still being developed so that we can use the data. So hopefully in the next demo that we have will be quite beautiful in terms that our PMS colleagues will be showing a product. We will be taking that product, loading it into the form, and then changing it. For now, unfortunately, we still have to work with test data. But I'm very much looking forward to the full circle that we will be able to do in the future. I'm not going to go into details of co-authoring because this was not part of our current iteration. I will be focusing on adding products from PMS. So this is the first screen that you land on. And this is where we did some improvements, not only on the UI, but also on navigation. We do still have quite a few bugs open, and I am sorry for that because our increment is not finished. So I might be running into some issues. We are finishing in 2 weeks' time, where we have our final deployment, but nevertheless, we still wanted to do that demo now to keep our timelines, and I hope everything will go fine. So I have currently 9 products for my marketing authorization holders. I am assigned to UET lock organization holder. That's not a real name, of course, but we have to work with those. So you can see all the organizations I am assigned to have products, and they're all listed here. So it doesn't matter which organization I start an application for. Whatever I'm assigned to, I can see the products. And I can just click anywhere on the line to see, well, these are the ones I want in my application now. For example, I can take here Proxibid 25 milligram and 75. And I see, okay, this is the MA number of it. So for now, I'm just copy pasting this one because if I might, for example, do a name change or an ATC code change, there is one important rule that we have to follow in the future, is that you can't, well, with the split into PMS, those things are 2 medicinal products, but as you know, it is a product and it's actually just one authorization. It has one MA number. So it might be that that I am marketing authorization holders for all of them, but it might also be that one of my subsidiaries has one of these products. And this is why we have different tabs up here. I want to select all of them. So I know I have 25 and 75, but I want to make sure there are no other products because I want to have them all in my list. If I had, I would have to search for who do I have to ask to get it. For now, we have 558 entries in our product dictionary, which will increase to 2,400 once we have the cups and to 550,000 once we have the MRP and national products. For now, I will just use the quick search up here to filter on this EU number. So I can see there are actually really just those 2 Proxibis. If there were more, they would show them up. They would show up here, and I could ask this marketing authorization holder to get access to the product. So I can do a variation with all of them. Removing the filter will then again load all products. So I say, okay, well, this could be done now, but in order to show what I want to show you, I am actually going to use Hybrix because this is my one product that has packages, and I want to show you package selection as well. As I want to show you a group, let's take a second product just for the fun of it, and Let's review our selection, because now I've clicked around quite a lot. Imagine the screen is quite large. You have a lot of products. You click on review and you see exactly which products you have selected now. You also see how many packages underneath you have. So I see this works. This is all made up data, so please don't punish me if there is something that doesn't make sense. I have this one that has 3 packages, so this is what I want. And for now, I say, all right, this is what I'm going to save and add to my application form. I'm coming back to this main navigation, which will most likely change in the next demo. As I said, we are going to redesign it a little bit. Also, navigation will change just a bit. For now, I will click Save and Continue, which will validate this screen. It will tell me that everything is all right. I did this correctly. It will give me a green tick and move me to the next section where I add a scope. Adding scopes has not changed for now. We do have some UAT feedback on improving this, because as you can see, you still have to do the same scope selection as you do in the current EF variation form. We would like to simplify this, and this is prioritized just a little bit lower. I will just add a name change here for the sake of it. It doesn't really matter what kind of scope I select. I'm going to take a 1B here, national product name change. I can now click that I have revised product information and save this. And I could select a second scope here, but for the sake of it, I want to show you what happens in the procedural information screen. Because as I have mentioned before, we have calculated the work sharing and grouping, and this is a very, very complex rule. And we are still testing it if we have covered everything. As you can see, this one at least is correct. I have selected 2 Mrp products, meaning this is a work sharing. And I have selected one scope, meaning this is a single regulatory activity or a single variation. It calculates the variation type, but it is 1B because one scope is there with 1B. And as I have 2 products of two countries, I now have to select which of them will be RMS. I can do that, and I can save, and it should tell me that the other one is now a CMS. All right, so you can see there is still just a tiny bug here. It should only show Ireland as CMS because Federal Republic of Germany is a bit weird. Probably we can also show a better display name. This is just what we get from RMS, and there are lots of possibilities to show this from RMS, as there are ISO codes as well, which might give a better understanding. Now, if I were to go back to types of change, I think, well, maybe I'll add another scope. So for now, I would just add an AZ scope, because I don't know actually what I want to do. And AZ is kind of just something. Let's take change in the qualifier of an administration device. So AZ changes are typically not structured information changes. And this is why I am picking them. They will give you later on the possibility to add free text. And this is what I want to show. So again, I'm selecting my 1B because this is the only thing I can select. I can just select all documentations here and click on Save. Flickering is also one of the bugs that we have, which we will resolve quite soon. Now, I'll just save and continue again to go to the procedural information. And if all goes well, the system should recalculate this and say, well, you have selected a second scope. This is now a grouping. And there you can see it. So hopefully we will get fewer errors here and fewer mistakes and on decisions on, is it really a work sharing? Is it really a grouping? We have also covered what is called at EMA an IG. which is a grouping of type 1a variations and is called, for Mrp products, on some nations call it a supergrouping. Those concepts are essentially the same, and we have covered all the rules that are possible and still calculating if this is an IG or a supergrouping. This is not in the real EF, but I think it is valuable information in here. So business asked us to do this, and as it works for all countries and EMA, we were able to add this to the, at least to the web form. Now, I could also say I have a new indication or a new pediatric requirement, which if I then click Save and Continue, I will get a new ribbon up here, new menu, which is additional information, which will show me a selection of pediatric information. I will not go into this. If you want more information, I think I've covered it in the last video. And we can cover it in the future as well if we do one more full run. The thing I want to show today is the changes. So there are two huge, I say huge, they can be huge, free text possibilities for change, which is the precise scope for change and the background for change. This is one field at the moment in the F. We have just split it into two separate boxes, and we will merge them in the PDF together. You can enter a lot of free text here, and you can do screenshots, enter images, you can do bold things. And at the moment, the idea is in one of these boxes, you will indicate if there is a problem with the products that you have selected. Because in the second part of this, you have to choose the structured information. And this is what I will be showing here, which we have redesigned just a little bit. It gives me the choice of selecting which scopes do you want to change. So I can do several changes. I can do all in one change, or I can split it into several changes. For now, this example probably doesn't make too much sense, but I would just split it into two changes. So it makes just a little bit sense. I'll take my name change into one change for both of these products. I'm sorry, I do have to click next here. I will review this selection and then it will tell me some details. So it says, okay, for this scope, you are changing these two products and these are the packages available. And now, as these are national products, or Mrp in this case, I think they're national, I do have to choose the packages. The same applies for central products. Because on Mrp, on Mrp, it's the only thing I don't have to choose. For nationals, I have to choose, and for centrals, I have to choose. Why? Because centrals can have a change on a specific package, and for nationals, there are some countries at least that can have a change on a specific package as well. Just to mention, I think a few is Portugal, France, and Italy. They have the authorization on package level, so I have to select which package I want to choose. I could just select all of them. For Mrp, those are auto-selected, so you can see my second product is an Mrp product, and this one is already selected and I cannot unselect it. If there were more packages underneath my Mrp product, those would all be pre-selected. Now, we don't have the rule that we check which country has their authorization on package level. This could be a feature for the future, maybe. For now, I don't even know it. I know these 3 countries, but I would have to check who exactly is doing this to add a rule for this. So there are hundreds of improvements possible for a web form, and hopefully we will continue to developing it. For now, we just want to have a product that can go live at some point soon. So I will be saving this, and it will validate if this is all right, if it can do this change together with these products. In this case, it saves and it doesn't give an error message, so this is possible. It tells me these are my 2 MA numbers in my one change for this scope, and it calculates which area this is. As this was a name change, it is the medicine product area. Although not part of this increment, because I've shown this before, I will show it just because to give you an overview of what we understand is a structure change, and also to give the link to PMS here. So this is where we actually call the first time for more than just identifiers, name, and substance. This is where we show present values from PMS. Although it is test data, this is how it would seem like. So the difficult part here is that we are in a variation, especially a work sharing one, where we don't have just one product, but two products. So two products need to be changed into one thing. So the proposed one is going to be a bit weird, especially as I have two products that shouldn't actually have a name change together, but for the sake of it and for the limited amount of test data I have, I'm just going to do this. So I'm going to look at each of these products and look at the full name here. And underneath that full name, I do have all the name parts available. So I can make this larger. Okay, so the first one doesn't have one, but the second one does have name parts. And here I can see the part, the strength part, the pharmaceutical form, dose part, the invented name part, etc. So these are things that we have seen before in the PMS migration. These are attributes that are required in the new IDMP. Now, if I wanted to do a change for both of these products, I would say, well, both of them have to change to the same name. So the proposed values underneath here, at the moment, they're suggesting both. I have to remove one of them to say, okay, do I want to live with Hybrix now, or do I want to live with Trixie now? I could just remove, well, let's remove the first one. And then I say, this is going to be my new name. I could also edit some details and then say, well, I do want to change them in other languages or add, just change the invented name part. We still have some outstanding stories to block the change of strength part, pharmaceutical dose part, and full name part, because these are calculated. The invented name part, and I do believe there is one more, that probably the scientific part, that can actually be changed in variation. So not all name parts are able to change. For now, we just have the full RMS list and whatever we get from PMS here. This is the kind of thing that will happen for all structured products. Brilliant. And this is what happens if you show something in a test system. Usually, well, if something like this happens, you can always go back to your application form. It was saved, so I can see I have a PI demo here. I click on Edit Application Form. Hopefully, of course, in production, this will not be the case. But for now, I see I can just continue where I have left off before. So I go back to changes. I see the one that was added already is here. All I have to do now is, again, go to View and Propose Changes to continue my editing. Now, these are the main things that have changed. We are still improving this slightly. So what is upcoming here on our concepts is that we will allow for navigations via these tabs as well as via buttons. So just to make it more intuitive, we are working on how to remove something again. At the moment, we're implementing mainly the happy path, but we do want to have all the possibilities where you think of, okay, well, I might want to change this and go back. I want to add a new product in the middle of my application and then see what happens and then see how these buttons would behave in a more user-friendly way. The last thing I want to show for today, and I do believe I do have another 15 minutes, which I will not need, so we have more time for questions and answers. So for now, I want to click on export and see what happens. Well, I know what happens. I want to show what happens. Is clicking on export here will take the data that I have in my variation form. Well, I actually do have to click the button. And I do need, all right. Let's try one more time. Open up another application form. I'm sorry, this sometimes happens on live demos. I'm going to take another one that was prepared before and click on export here, which I am very sorry I will not be showing today because apparently we did run into slight issues. So I will try one more thing. I'm doing this in another browser. This is also how it would look like if multiple people work on the same form. You can invite other people who also just open up a form and click on edit, and you can both edit the same form. This is the nice thing about having something in the web, and whereas the PDF would have to be sent around. And yes, so I will promise you the next time we will show the PDF export and the file message attached to it. For now, what I can show you is imagine the and you will see a little progress bar and saying this is the export that we have, and it is happening, and the file is being attached. Oh, all right. So if I am a little bit more patient, this actually does happen. So I remember there was a bug we had on finalization, which is probably on export as well, which is 10 seconds we lose in time. This is being fixed right now, and this is probably what happened here. The other very interesting thing that happened is that while I was exporting this, I took an application here that I prepared 2 days ago, and yesterday we got an update from PMS that changed my product. So this was actually not part of this increment, but this is so lovely that I want to show it today because this is a feature that I think is brilliant. It tests, well, it does the validation against PMS again. It realizes the product Trixie, Haemophilus type B, etc., has been changed in the meantime while I am editing this form. This can happen due to parallel variations, due to data cleansing or data enrichment while I'm doing variations, and the system will realize this. For now, the message is a bit cryptic, just stating 2 rows have been updated. We'll see that we can improve this, but it says the PMS update was successful, there is no conflict, and it can just show, well, if you refresh, it will show you the new data. There's also a case where there is a conflict, where it will ask you what it should take. For now, I just click yes, I want to continue with my export. I have my new product in there, and it will do a PDF export here. So once we get into all of these concurrent updating of PMS use cases, which will happen in the future, the DADI pod will at least bring this feature to the table. Of course, we need a lot more discussions, which will happen on how exactly to resolve concurrent issues. But this is a topic for a future demo. For now, I show you the progress bar. Here we add a failed file validation just to see how failed file validations would look like. This is always failing, this is intentionally. I can still download this, and what will happen is I download a PDF. And this is the PDF I have, well, as I have it today, with some debugging information. So in yellow here, this is just a help for us to see which attributes are already mapped and which have now brought from the web to the PDF. You can ignore this. The first real page is the one that you know, which is notice to applicants, and the generated table of contents, and later on the structure of the EF. I can make this a little bit larger so it's easier to read, maybe like this. So everything that is at the moment covered in yellow, this will get removed, of course, in the end, but it is mapped to the web form. So you can see the type of authorization is a national one here because I had national products. It was a grouping and a work sharing, so it will tick this. It was a type 1B. I have ticked indication and pediatric requirements that are changing. So please bear in mind, this is not the one I demoed before. This is now an export of something I did 2 days ago, which only had national products. If there were MRP and national, it would tick both of these boxes. It will give me the OMS details of the AMA holder. And if I were to enter a contact person, it would also give me the contact person details. I didn't enter one because I was lazy. Now, it will also show me the medicinal products here. Again, the ones in yellow are mapped. The ones that just are blue are not done yet. So we are still working on this. So every increment, every demo that we have, we will have more yellow fields until in the end, all of them will be. And then in the very end, none of them will be, but everything will work. We have the types of changes. You can see here, we still just have the RMS values. Of course, this will change to the actual name. So the term name, we have the two scopes that I have selected. And if I were to enter something in precise background and change, this would also show up. Same for my free text change. I haven't shown the free text change today. I've showed it last time in the demo. For the Z scope, for example, you can just enter a present text and the proposed text, and it will show up here because this was not structured data. And this is it, I believe. So orphan and pediatric is not yet mapped. It will be done in a future demo. Now, the interesting bit here, of course, for us developers is the attached EF here, which I can save to my desktop or my downloads folder. It is just something called EF, and I will open it up with, for now, just Notepad. This is usually not something a human would read. Now I can just pretty print this, so at least it looks prettier. You can see this is the message. This is the file message. This is the standard we use to submit products from one place to another in the future. Now it is attached to the PDF, meaning it can be used to import to whatever system it has to be imported. And those systems will be one PMS as one of the product management systems, but there are a lot of them out there. So most NCAs, I guess all of them have some sort of IT system, and they will have to import that product, well, that variation as well, because for all the national and the Mrp variations, they want that data in the system. So PMS is one system that updates, that imports this, but not the only one. Of course, it is the one that we can, well, influence the easiest, the people we can talk to and see that that import will work, and we can work on how this import should work, and this is something we are doing in the future. For now, I think the important thing is to have that message, to have it attached to the PDF, and for it to be complete. The entire medicinal product is here, even though not the entire medicinal product has been changed. Everything is here because PMS wants a full update. What also is here is at the very end are things we call provenance. So this is what I am changing. So if it checks the product as it was before and it checks again the changes it will add these provenance resources at the end, which will tell me exactly what was the change. Now, if you want to have some more detail on this, we did a webinar as well. If you can either look at the EMA webpage, you can just go to the EMA site to e-submissions. I think you know this one, e-submissions, because you are working with this one. Sorry, e-submissions, ema.europa.eu, which is this site here. And you will see there is a DADI here where we have the links to both the webinars that were held, one on the tactical spec of FHIR and one on just content of the DADI project, Q&As, and how it works. So please, for more information, go there. And this would be the end of my demo. I will give some time back for Q&A. I thank you very much for your attention and hand over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Noel, for that extended presentation. We are going to move into Q&A. Those that have been using the Slido will have seen that we have over 130 questions. A lot of those questions we understand. We understand that you have them. They're not quite in scope for what we're covering in this demo. So we will take them on board. We will look at other opportunities indeed to address those questions. However, what we've done for now is we've selected a few questions, and indeed I'll be asking colleagues to respond to those. I do think most of the questions in the Slido will have gotten some form of a response already in writing, so please do also check for those. However, indeed, there's a couple that we'll verbally discuss. To the product owners, feel free to all unmute. There's a few people need to ask to just first address a question, after which indeed anyone that would like to add to that can chip in. The first one that I wanted to ask Christina, and maybe Veronica can chip in, is the question by Jeroen Veen, and that is, because DADI intends to exploit the full potential of PMS, does this mean that the implementation of the DADI form is dependent on the delivery and implementation of PMS? Christina.
I'm happy to start, or Veronica, do you want to explain the interactions first? Thank you, Veronica.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christina. So for everybody in the public, what we are doing so far is having a strict cooperation with the PMS and DADI team. So definitely you can also have had an understanding from this demo today that there is a strict link between the PMS database and the DADI web form, new application form. So what we did so far is to focus very much, first of all, on the aspect related to the data model. So we had a lot of discussion on how to align the PMS database versus the DADI web form database and vice versa. But we also had to work, and we're still working, and this is showing the strict and direct link between the two projects on other aspects related not only the data structure per se, but also the data to be used, so-called spore data, master data. So any type of information that you need to enter, like an organization or an RMS term, a pill, a tablet, all of these lists and terminology, we are all aligning in order to allow the two projects to be fed by the same level of information. So we are doing these efforts as well. And then we plan to cover in future also more details related indeed to the process. So that's why you don't see during this meeting any details related to how the data are actually processed. And I will hand over to my colleague Christina. Maybe you want to complement my question and my answer.
Thank you, Veronica. So just to add there, what I also answered in writing already. So we are closely aligning with PMS colleagues to ensure that our deliverables are ready for each other, so that PMS is ready to support the DADI go live. As you saw in Noel's presentation, it is already possible to select the products from PMS, and it will also be possible to show the structured data where available, where the features have already been developed. So we don't see any critical issues with the dependency at the moment, or any reason for any delay due to directly PMS aspects. But we, of course, always work very closely with all the relevant teams at the EMA. So DADI is not working in isolation with PMS. We also have to take into consideration other projects such as the IRIS project, where you may also be aware of. So that's why we are moving into this safe agile approach, and we have included all the relevant parts into the same value stream so that we can align them. And in our next product increment planning session, we will look at these dependencies very carefully. Thank you. I hope that addresses the question.
Thank you, Veronica and Christina. Next, I'll just jump up to the actually most voted question that we starred, and that's in the EMA management portal, a new user description, EF user has appeared. Will this role be necessary for using DADI? Noel, Christina, would you want to address those?
Yes, sure. So I will limit my question here just a little bit, because the advanced access management is a feature that we will develop next, meaning in the next demo, we will give a very profound example and some explanations on what exactly are the roles that you will be able to apply for, with what kind of access you can have in the system. But just to say, yes, you will need to register. There will be a period before where you can register. You need an account, and the roles that you now see in IEM are probably the ones you will have to get. There are also UAT roles that we will use to apply for the UAT once it is there. And we will cater for all possible scenarios for small enterprises that have links to consultancies, and for large enterprises that have multiple organizations in different organizations in different countries. The rest, please bear with me for another 3 months and join us in the next demo.
Thank you, Noel. Then we had a question. If the data is being merged, for example, in case of centralized procedure data coming from SciMed and XVMPD, what would be the primary source if for the same field data is available in both sources? I think that was one that you wanted to pick up, Andre.
I would actually leave the question to my colleague Marcos, who is
okay.
the one
Then,
who should.
Yeah.
Well, you can complete, Andre, if you want.
So
yeah,
I'm
okay. So as you have seen in the demo, there is data that is repeated. So we have the same information in SciMed or in Article 57. So depending on the product, if it's a cap or an on-cap, and also depending on the field, the business rule is different. There are fields that we have repeated information. So we have information in SciMed and in Article 57. We have decided which is the source that we will take the information from. What happened also if there are discrepancies between both sources, and also what happened if we only have the information in one source. All this information will be reflected in Chapter 7 of the EUIG, where we will have all these business rules for the migration of data from SciMed and Article 57 to PMS. So here I cannot give you a full answer, because we should go then field by field explaining the different business rules. So just as a general answer, it depends on the type of procedure, if it's a cap or a non-cap, because we have information in different sources, and also it depends on the field. And the full information, you will find it in Chapter 7 of the EUIG once we release it. I don't know if, Andre, you want to add something, or?
No, nothing to add from me. I think that was it.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, Marcos. Then we had a question from Gabriel Boronat. Will it be possible to collaborate on completion of forms with colleagues and/or professional service providers? Christina, Noel?
I would refer to my previous answer. Yes, and the way this will be happening, we will cover in the next demo.
Great. Okay. Then I'm just going to ask Veronica that at least one of the viewers was wondering about what XEVMPD actually is. And maybe there's a few things that you'd want to say about that and where people could find more information if they're not familiar with that tongue-twisting six-letter acronym.
Absolutely, and thanks for the question. I mean, for people who are not familiar with what XVMPD is, XVMPD is this extended database for gathering data on approved medicinal product data, and it's also called Article 57 database. This database is based on a legal requirement for the industry, so marketing authorization holder, to submit authorized product data within XCVMPD in a certain time frame by the time this has been approved. And the same database is also used to be kept up to date whenever there is a variation to the terms of the marketing authorization or transfers or renewals of products authorized in the European Union. And this information should be reflected according to the legislation into XVMPD database. So the connection between XCVMPD to PMS is due to the fact that the Product Management Service PMS database will have to be seen as the future successor of XCVMPD. What we aim in the future and not in this year is to replace XCVMPD by using PMS. So that's why we are working towards the implementation of the ISO DMP standards, because currently the amount of data elements that is contained in XCVMPD is much lower compared to what PMS data model contains. And just to give you an example, XCVMPD contains around 50 data elements, while PMS is exceeding 200. So the level of data being structured in future in PMS will be much more detailed, and this will bring a benefit for the public, for the stakeholder, for NCAs and the healthcare professionals in the long-term vision.
Thank you, Veronica. Another one for the PMS colleagues from an anonymous person from a question. Why are you only integrating the data from one national database called SciMed, so EMA's internal database? What about all the other NCA databases?
Okay, so maybe I can answer this one. So we are taking the information from XCVMPD, as we explained. SciMed is not one national database, is the EMA database. So that there is where we have all the CAP, so the centrally authorized medicinal products data, is stored in SciMed. That's why we are taking the information from this database, because it's the database that EMA is using to store this data. We are not saying that we are not taking data from other national databases. This is something that we still need to discuss. There is a possibility, if we agree on that, that we can take data from other national databases, but this has not been agreed yet. It might be subject to the next increments to include this information, but this is again something that we need to discuss. It has not been agreed, so for the moment we are only taking the data from SciMed, which is the EMA database, and Article 57 or XCMPD, where we have the data for the non-centrally authorized products and the centrally authorized products as well.
Thank you, Marcos.
You're welcome.
Then another PMS question, actually. How often will data be migrated into PMS? Are there regular updates to XCVMPD that may not be valid during initial load?
I can take the question. So the short answer is near to real time. So what the technical team is working is to implement a series of delta that can allow that the update received in XCVMPD and then submitted, of course, by the marketing authorization holder can reach then PMS database almost near to close to real time. So we aim to have almost live information on time, and we are testing also these as part of the PI and product increments in our EPIC in a safe mode.
Thank you, Veronica.
My
Then there's two more questions we had started, so let's try and see if we can address both of those. One is from Laurent Desquier. Incorrect not to migrate non-validated XVMPND records. These are still valid registrations that need to be used for DADI. Otherwise, how can it work?
I will try to give some
Okay.
clarity on that.
Go
So
ahead.
indeed, I think we saw in the demo that one of the products that should have been grouped together into a PMS product was not there. It was an invalid product in XCVMPD. We are actually loading non-validated data. The rules, though, for grouping products together into a single PMS product are based first on valid data, if available for a product in XCVMPD, and then on non-validated data. And the risk there is that validated data is not necessarily the same as non-validated data for products that should be grouped together. So therefore, we cannot programmatically group them. And I think that was the case in what we saw in the demo. So just to reiterate the current rules, we are using first validated data and then non-validated data to group multiple products from XCVMPD into the single PMS product as per the ISO IDMP rules that define what a product is. And then the actual data that is loaded comes from the latest version of a product in XCVMPD, whether validated or not.
Thank you, Andre.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Marcus,
Sorry,
go ahead.
Luis.
Yeah, I was just
would like
wanted
to
to
add
ask
here.
what you wanted to add.
Yeah. So yeah, indeed, there was a mistake in the presentation that I did. So this product was indeed loaded. The problem is that, as Andre was saying, there is no validated data, and in this case, this medicinal product, the procedure number was different to the rest of the other products with validated data. The procedure number is a field that we are using to match and merge all the different pharmaceutical the presentations into one medicinal product. So as we had a different um, procedure number, it was not merged with the rest of the presentation, and that was the problem in this case. But yeah, it was a mistake in the presentation. I'm sorry for that.
I think that's quite okay. It's hereby corrected. And I guess also in the presentation that we will share after this demo, we'll make sure that it's correct there as well. Then final question: can the common fire message be more specific already? Is it known which one? Is that?
I can take the question if you want.
Go ahead.
So for everybody, you know that PMS project is delivering a UAG, which is the guidance to explain how we structure the data in PMS. And within chapter 2, we also include information related to what 5 version we are using for now. So because of this, of the conjunction between DADI and PMS, now there is a direct link. So we have agreed that we're going to use the same file version. And you might see that in this version of the UAG chapter 2, we refer to version 4.4.0. However, we have agreed that by the go live, we're going to move to FIRE R5 version in order to be fully aligned in terms of FIRE messages between PMS and DADI. So both projects can read the same information in the same way, and it's totally aligned.
Thank you, Veronica. Those are the questions that we're going to be answering during this demo. As you noticed, I did leave the Q&A open after all. We will again take all those questions on board. We will look at different ways of providing those responses, whether it's in communications, whether it's in training, whether it's in a future webinar, whether it's in a consolidated Q&A documents. So we'll find different ways to answer those questions, but indeed we're not going to answer each question individually beyond the scope of this session. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining this first public demo. Feel free to also use the Q&A function to provide some feedback or your advice for future demos, or perhaps indeed some of the other sessions and information that you'd like to hear about. Because again, this demo was a very specific ceremony with the goal of demonstrating some of the progress made over the past 3 months. There'll be another one next quarter. However, there's going to be a lot more communication and outreach, so feel free to let us know what you'd like to know more about. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the product owners and to Fergus for your presentations.